nothing that I have spoke about over here has come remotely close this week to Sean Strickland making a selfie video in his pickup as he's driving down the road about Ian Garry and a book that Ian's wife wrote and published 10 years ago on Amazon. Like, nothing will even touch that. It has been the unexpected topic of the week. It's turning into the unexpected successful topic of the month. And what should Ian Garry do? What should Ian Garry do? Now, I'll tell you what he's going to do. And it's only a question and a matter of how long is he going to do this for, which is to say it's not accurate and attempt to tell the side that is accurate. He's only going to do, and let's say it's completely inaccurate, just for example. It's completely inaccurate, so he comes out and he's telling the truth. Okay, great. That isn't going to work. Now, let's say that it is accurate, but he's got a little bit of a different spin and a little different flavor on it. So he's going to come out and he's going to tell that as a way of stopping the freight train that is the narrative. That, too, is not going to work. So, being his first time in a storm, he's not going to know these things. This is what he's going to do, for sure. He is either going to try to correct what is not accurate, or he's going to deny and attempt to defer. For sure. For a period of time, neither of which are going to work. And in a very reasonable scenario will make things worse. So what is it that he should do? Not what is it he's doing. What is it that he should do? And it's one of these situations where, as badly as you would like the truth to be on your side, or you would like the truth to set you free, and you've been told that, and your teachers told you, and your parents told you, and really good people have told you, the truth will always come out. The truth is simply a lie that has been told enough times. It is many times and often that the perpetrator, that the wrong party, that the one is not being honest, will cover the spread, cover the ground, and get his message out. His untrue message will often win in terms of prevailing, in terms of public opinion, who's heard what and what they believe. People will often believe the very first thing that they hear, which is why it's so difficult. If you have a perpetrator, if you have somebody that came out and they came out to slander you, right? And you've all felt this to some degree. Maybe you've done it to somebody. Maybe you had it done to you, and maybe it was way back in the 7th grade. But boy, that went through that classroom fast. When you thought you controlled it in that classroom, by the time you go out to lunch, all the other classrooms have now heard about it too, and you can't believe, how did that go so fast? And it's not accurate, and here's why. But you never can quite put that toothpaste back in the tube. So what is it that you do? And I know that Ian's wife has attempted to defend it to a degree, where she's come out and said the book was satire and it was comical and not to be taken serious, which might be exactly what it is. I'm just sharing for you that hasn't worked and that's not going to work. And if she comes out in any degree as a defense of her top-ranked, undefeated, cage-fighting, aspiring champion husband, it's going to be one of those things that's just going to be hard. It's going to be one of those things that's very, very difficult to do. I know the press conference is likely to be very difficult on Ian if he plans to take the stance of leveling with you, the audience, of leveling with you. All right, guys, look, here's what happened. Let's get this out. Throw whatever, but let me level with you. Things are going to be very hard at that point, regardless of what that answer is, whether it makes sense, whether it's logical, whether it's the absolute truth, and people that just want to keep this going, tell them that it's not true. It's one of those spots, it's one of those 8 Mile Eminem moments where when Eminem takes the microphone and he's about to do a shoot rap, but he goes first and he spends those seconds destroying himself, leaving the opponent with no ammunition. It's one of those things. And I've seen guys attempt from a PR perspective, while that's a very effective strategy, it's called leaning into it. While it's a very effective strategy to go with it and go hard, there's still a presentation that has to be done with. If you think you're just going to go make fun of yourself, you will be right that they'll stop. That's true. You will have taken their ammunition away. But if you want to go out there and steer into it by telling the truth and telling it before anybody else does, and you don't do it in a cool way, you haven't gained any ground. It's not just a matter of making them stop, it's making them stop while you come out looking in a certain way. And that is where the art and the dance comes. And it's definitely one of those difficult situations. So you could go with it. You could tell the truth. You could get to the press conference. You could leading into the press conference days before. You get in front of it like many politicians and make one statement and then say, I will never speak of this again. And when the very next question comes, you go, I've said I will never speak of this again. And the next question comes, you say, I've said I'll never speak of this again. You hit 3 or 4 of those and they'll move on. They have to move on. They have to get content. Like there is a way to do it. What would that be? How far could that gimmick go? She's already spoken up and she's tried to come to his aid. Which, when he's the ranked undefeated cage fighter, it's one of these spots. But that's out there. Should he continue with that? Should she sit next to him at the press conference? Should he have a cell phone that's live and every question he gets, and he picks up the phone and says, hey, babe, what should I say? And then she feeds him the line and he puts it out. What is it that they should do to be able to move on from the point they are in? And I will tell you, there was times in my career where I needed a reaction. I had the courage, I had the skills. That took you a long way at one point. You had guys that just didn't have the courage to step in there with so-and-so because he was ranked so high. I'll fight him. Any weight class, any night. Tomorrow, a week, anyone you want. I had that courage. But I couldn't get the reaction from them. I needed them to respond. When I came out in the media and I told them these things, that was very interesting. If I could get that higher ranked guy to respond. And nothing got them to respond more often and more of a guaranteed response than something they deemed to not be true. So it's one of those interesting situations where they're going to stay on this, and the fellow fighters are going to poke, and wherever this is going, this is going to go. Or you pull the manual out yourself. You start to read it yourself, and you say, well, it's interesting that you bring it up, considering she wrote chapter 6 about you, and here's what she had to say about you. Which you've 100% fabricated on the spot, but you've now given them a crown bust. The same thing that they're doing this to you. They're not doing it to you because it's factual. They're not doing it to you because it's been proven. They're not doing it to you because they were there and they actually know. They're doing it to you to embarrass you. Which is what you would achieve by telling them that chapter 6 is actually written about you. And let's read this out loud for the audience. And you begin firing back. It's one of those situations. How do you get them to stop? How do you get them to deflect? How do you get them to move on? How do you do those things? You had this wonderful narrative of Leon and Gary, and they got kicked out of the gym, and it was real life, and you're building towards something good, which was a really special moment, because the most uninteresting thing in all of Ian Garry's life happens to be the most uninteresting thing in Luke's life as well, which is they're fighting each other. There is no headlines, and there's nothing you can do with these two fighting one another, and they don't want it to happen. They're friends, and they were teammates, and it was this whole... But fortunately, the day was saved because Ian Garry, who went to a new gym, which right in and of itself, I mean, are you hearing the problem? Gary can't speak about Luke and Luke can't speak about Gary because they're teammates. Meanwhile, Ian's in a different gym. Do you know what teammate means? I mean, do you see the problem right from Jump Street? But this is the way that they're going to choose to tell it. There's nothing you can do, but you can at least get the headline. You can bring something interesting in, and at the bottom, you can tag it live on pay-per-view. Saturday night, right? It's one of these things. Luke couldn't get that. Luque couldn't get an interview doing anything interesting at all. You have not seen a Luque interview, and you haven't seen a Garry interview that has to do with Luque, but at least you got the Garry interview, and you can swerve him at the end and bring it back to Luque. That couldn't draw. The unexpected draw of the week and of the month, with the numbers right there to be audited for public view, turns out to be Sean Strickland's comments on Ian Garry, of which Ian is yet to respond and to address, whether that's to call Sean out or call the issue out, with the hopes that it will go away. Ignore them and they'll stop. There's some truth to that. There is definitely some truth to that. What is it you believe Ian Garry should do to get the topic off of a book that was written and sold on Amazon 10 years ago and back onto a fight with Vincent Luque, which you never wanted in the first place?